My name's Lauren. I'm an author, tiny house builder, but most of all, I'm a huge tea snob. After having to give up coffee, I picked up tea and I haven't stopped investing in it since. From researching its history, to trying new teas whenever I get the chance, to learning about the tea masters of the world, I'm here to review my various cups and give you insight on all the things I learned. Welcome to my cup of tea. Hello everyone, this is part 2 of a 2-part series, so make sure to check out last week's video to get a better picture of everything that's going on. Thank you. Wulang Shou ripe Pu'erh is delivered to us by Stephen Smith tea maker from the Jingdong Yi County in Yunnan, China. This tea is a little different than last week's raw Pu'erh because it has undergone a sort of accelerated aging process. It supposedly has tasty notes of buttermilk pancakes, portobello, and palo santo, or as Stephen Smith explains, it has a dark, full-bodied, and earthy taste with a sweet, lingering finish. Jingdong Yi County in Yunnan, China is another county within the range that Pu'erh teas are allowed to be made and named as Pu'erh. This county holds Wulang Mountain, one of the 6 famous tea mountains, but otherwise has less of a well-known pedigree than its neighboring counties. Within this county, however, is part of the Tea Horse Road, an ancient road that spread through Yunnan and over to Thailand and a lot of other different places. I kind of briefly mentioned it in my last video and showed a map, which hopefully I am displaying now as well. Its history goes back even further according to YunnanExploration.com, and as they state, in the 1986 Cultural Relics Survey, the stone axe, stoneware, and other objects of the Neolithic age were discovered in Langkang River flowing through the county and along Chuhi River, which is indicated that human beings lived in Jingdong in ancient times. Ripe Pu'erh differs from raw Pu'erh in one major area. Ripe Pu'erh undergoes an artificial aging process of sorts. Developed in the 1970s to accommodate the high demand of Pu'erh tea, a process of sort of piling, and in piling these leaves in an area with no smells, in a very humidity-controlled area, and sometimes even cooked for a period of time, helps make this Pu'erh tea age and ferment in a way that is sort of quickened. Raw Pu'erh generally sits somewhere and just ages naturally through the years, through the ages. But ripe Pu'erh, they try to quicken it as fast as possible. Cooking, piling, letting it sit in an area for a few months to continue to ferment with very temperature and humidity controlled area, and without any smell, so nothing can taint this Pu'erh. As some of you might know, tea likes to absorb smells, so if you store it in an area that has a lot of smells or is getting a lot of smells, the tea will take on those smells, which is kind of why I'm interested to see how my raw Pu'erh ends up being, because I live in a tiny house. If I cook in my tiny house, all those smells go everywhere, so I'm curious. This aging process roughly makes the tea taste about what it would look like if it was aged naturally, but doesn't have the same level of depth and layers that a raw Pu'erh aged the normal process would have. You get this darker tea of sorts quicker, but you kind of lack that layered, so it just kind of is a trade-off. You just kind of figure out what one do you want. Now, before I continue, I wanted to also talk about the process I used in the last video and in this video called the gaiwan process. This lidded cup, the gaiwan, came during the Ming Dynasty as a result of the Chinese tea master Lu Yu. When Lu Yu described the proper vessel for tea, he described one that was large enough to brew tea within, but small enough to fit in one's hands. The gaiwan, or the tea bowl, as it was called back then, eventually evolved to the gaiwan over time. To use the gaiwan, you fill it with leaves, leaving enough room for the leaves to unfurl fully within the cup. This is generally a heaping amount, but do take note of how some leaves unfurl to much larger than their compressed state, so make sure to keep yourself a little bit of room. Pour your hot water over the leaves, then pour the water out. This releases the aroma of the leaves and can be appreciated with the lift of the lid. It can also wash away leaf impurities such as small broken leaves and other things of the like. Next, fill it with hot water again. Brew for 5 to 10 seconds or for filling all the cups available for the ceremony in a circular fashion. This circular motion ensures that all cups will have the same taste and equal amounts. Once the cups are full, partake in your tea and repeat the process, brewing as many times as you want. Take note of how the tea changes through multiple brewing processes, extended time, and just take that moment to rest in peace and enjoy your tea. You can also drink the tea directly from the gaiwan, using the lid to keep the leaves in place. And while my fingertips don't have the same nerve endings as they used to, I did not want to try to juggle doing this and having a camera in the other hand with liquid that was very, very hot. So you won't see me trying this right now. As a note, this gaiwan drinking process is a variation on the gonggu-cha process, a ceremony that I could get into in a different video that I don't have all the materials to do here in the house. So, with all that said, how's this tea even taste? We stopped recording. That's fantastic. So, let's go ahead and go over this one more time. So, I have already brewed the second cup because I thought we were recording, and I brewed that. But I will go over what the first cup tasted like. First cup, you had a little bit more of a grassy note in the very beginning, with a hint of earthiness underneath to kind of carry it through. And I wasn't so sure about the tea because I was thinking, well, I'm not a big grassy note person. But you brewed it again, and I added another 10 to 15 seconds on top of that. The tea came out even darker than the first one. The first one kind of has like a little bit more of a reddy color, dark reddy color, but this one is just, it's black. It's black. Gorgeous color, good smells, and the notes changed. I had a little bit of the hint of the grassiness, but as I was drinking it more and more, I noticed mostly the mushroom flavor in the very beginning. So this tea becomes more of that portobello mushroom taste, like Stephen Smith said. And yeah, you have that lingering sweetness afterwards. It's really interesting because you get this mushroom flavor and you get that buttermilk pancake sweetness as it comes through. It's curious. I've never had a tea like this necessarily that I can remember. And it's very, very good. And I'm very excited to kind of see how it continues to change and mature with consecutive brewings. I'm planning on kind of just brewing it throughout the day and seeing how those flavors change, and hopefully I can kind of throw some notes up in editing to kind of note any other flavors that I might have noticed through the flavor tasting. So I did want to kind of go over what I recommend this for a new tea drinker. I would only recommend this if you do like mushrooms for their taste and not their texture. Because obviously you don't get the mushroom texture with this, but you do get the taste of portobello mushrooms, and it becomes a very mushroomy tea with second brewing. If you're brewing this in a large cup, as usual, as normal, with 85 degrees Celsius and maybe 3 to 4 minutes of time, you're probably going to get a slightly different taste than what I got out of it. I would imagine still mushroomy, because that seems to be the taste that's kind of commandeering and coming forward a lot in this brewing. So I would just, if you like mushrooms, then yeah, I would give this a shot. But if you're not a big mushroom fan, if you're not a big Pu'erh fan, and if you're not into dark tea as much, I wouldn't recommend this one for you until you've kind of had a few more Pu'erhs to kind of cultivate that flavor and a palate. Because if you go into this thinking that you're going to get a black tea, you're not going to get that. The only thing you might get is a little bit of that dryness aftertaste as you're drinking, and that's basically it, because it doesn't have any of the other tasty notes of black tea that we know in the West, at least. So I like this tea. I'd probably give it maybe 3 or 4 stars out of 5. It's very good. I will state that it's fairly expensive. So if you're on the fence about it, I would just wait. Go ahead and try different things from different brewers, or you could get one of the smaller, I think Stephen Smith sells them loose leaf as well instead of just the cakes. You pay extra for the cakes because they're neat. They're cool looking. But if you get, and it's like a huge amount. I'll be having Pu'erh tea for the rest of my life, basically. But if you get the small little loose leaf sachets, you might be in better shape to to try it and see if this is something that you even like. As a note, remember each Pu'erh tea is made differently. You're gonna get different tasty notes from each Pu'erh tea. Some might be similar in the punchiness, but the exact tasting notes are going to be a little bit different. So just keep that in mind as you're trying different ones. And yeah, I think that's this one. I'm going to go over there and talk about Death of the Author. Remember, if you're a Patreon, you get these little writing talks as I finish off my tea on that side of my house, my living room. Yeah, so good tea overall, I think. Very interesting. Never really had a mushroom tea before. It's very good. It's curious. I'm not a big mushroom eater, so it's a little new to me, the mushroom flavors that I'm tasting. But I'm excited to keep trying it and see if I end up really liking this tea, or if it's kind of like, wow, maybe I'm just not a mushroom person. So we'll see. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!